Welcome back to my channel everyone. So today's look is this Jurassic World Raptor inspired makeup look. So you can see where the inspiration come from, here is a clip of the trailer.
Stand down. You got Charlie, here is Delta, this one's called Blue.
I was so excited when the guys behind the movie asked me to create this Raptor inspired makeup tutorial. My reference image here is on the left and my makeup is on the right. So to start off with, I want to flatten Billy's eyebrows and I'm using this FX wax by Kryolan. You don't have to do this step, you can just use the Fuller's Earth to flatten the eyebrows, and I'll be showing you how to use the Fuller's Earth as we go on throughout the tutorial. But I am a bit of a perfectionist, and with male eyebrows they are a little bit fuller than females and I like them to be really flat. That's why I'm using the wax, but you don't have to do this step. So I'm using my spatula that is also by Kryolan, and I'm pulling the wax over the hair in the direction of the hair growth so that they lay nice and flat. Some people like to comb the hairs upwards, but I just personally like to go with the direction of the hair. I'm combing it through once the wax is on, and then I'm reflattening the wax using the spatula. I'm then taking a sealant by Kryolan to go over the top of the wax, and this is going to seal the wax so we can work on top of it. I'm using the spatula to do this as the sealant will ruin your brush bristles. Now, referring to my Raptor reference image, I'm going to use my Faceliner pencil by Kryolan in black. I'm going to pencil on the shape of the Raptor. Now obviously at first it seems quite difficult to adapt this to a human face, as our bone structure is completely different and our face isn't as wide, but with the help of some easy made prosthetics and our penciled on guide, it won't be too hard to replicate the shape onto our own face. I'm starting off by placing the eyes on top of the forehead, and then I'm placing in the eye socket. Once I have these symmetrical, it's easy for me to stand back and look and see where I need to draw on the other areas of the bone structure. The nice thing about working with these soft pencils is if you make a mistake, you can simply wipe it away with your finger. Now remember, this is just a guide, it doesn't need to be perfect. It'll all start to come together once you start working on top of all your base colours. So I'm just penciling the shapes I see on my reference image, and I will put a link in the description bar to where I found the reference image on Google, and you can use that and my video if you decide you want to replicate this look. Now as I mentioned, the face is a lot bigger than ours, so I'm drawing the lips below Billy's lips and I'm drawing them onto the chin. For the prosthetics, I'm going to take some liquid latex by Kryolan and some quilted cotton wool, and I'm going to use this to build up two mounds on the forehead, which is going to be above the Raptor's eyes. I'm also going to bring this straight down and we're going to cover Billy's bridge of his nose, and this is going to make that area look more flat and more raptor-like. I'm going to simply dip the cotton wool into the latex and place that onto the head. The reason I've chose to use cotton wool is one, because it's easy, and two, it's going to give us the right texture. It's also very cheap and easy for you to replicate at home. If you decide to skip the step of using wax on the eyebrows, then before you apply this latex, be sure to cover the brow in some vaseline. You only have to apply a small amount to the very front of the brow where the latex is going to lay over the top of. Latex will pull any hairs out that it attaches itself to. If you do get any on your hair, simply wipe it off before it dries. So we're going to layer this cotton wool section by section until we've got the desired height. I applied 3 layers of the cotton wool and I allowed each section to dry before applying the next one. Now you can use a hairdryer to speed up the process in between each layer. As you apply each layer, you're going to be smoothing the cotton wool down, making sure the outer edges form a nice definitive line, but you don't want to smooth them too much as we do still want to create those bumps that the Raptor naturally has. I'm going to be using these 2 brown paints from the Aqua colour palette by Kryolan, and I'll link it in the description bar, and I'm also going to be swapping between a sponge and a brush to apply this. I'm applying this colour over the entire face, and I'm going to leave a really tiny line between each guide. That way I won't totally lose the shape that I've drawn on, but I'll still be colouring the majority of the face in this colour, as this is our main base colour. To work the paint in between the small guidelines, I'm going to use a brush. As the paint is so dark, we would totally lose all of our guidelines if we happen to go over the entire face with just the sponge. This is also going to help when we apply the Fuller's Earth, as this is going to leave us tiny little ridges in the face, and that will come in really handy with creating definition. Whether you're working on yourself or a model, make sure you take this colour over your eyelids and underneath your lower lash line. If, like Billy, you're a bit of a flincher, then you can leave getting underneath that lower lash line right till the last minute. Don't forget to also take this down your neck and anywhere that's going to be visible. Don't forget your ears as well, I'll be covering those later in the tutorial with a brush. Now, to give us a head start on creating the texture of the Raptor's skin, which is bumpy and scaly, we're going to use this product called Fuller's Earth. Many of you ladies will be familiar with this product when you've used face masks. It's actually a clay product that draws out impurities from the skin and leaves your skin feeling really supple and soft. So we know it's safe to use on the face. I've mixed it to a paste consistency with some water. I'm applying this with a brush, not too thick, but thick enough so that it's going to crack and create a little bit of depth and texture to the face. Now you can see why it's integral for us to have left some of the guidelines visible, because once all this goes on the face, you really do lose the shapes that you've plotted out on the face. Now I tend to leave the eye area till last. I like to work into the face first and then just go back in with some Fuller's Earth around the eye area because I don't want it to be too thick and uncomfortable for the model to wear. Now we're going to go in with a hairdryer. This is quite a lengthy process. You want to make sure you dry it to the point where it starts to crack, and it can take a little while. If you left it to dry naturally, you're looking at about an hour. So my advice would definitely be to use the hairdryer, but only use it on a warm setting. So now we're going to start working on the eyes, and I'm using the Superstar black paint. This is a really good one because it's really black, and you'll find when you're working with paints on top of Fuller's Earth, it does tend to absorb a lot of the colour. Now looking at my reference image, above the eyes and around the eyes is very, very dark. This is going to give some real definition and depth to the shape of the eyes. I'm using the tip of my liner brush just to feather out the colour and shade that onto the Fuller's Earth. To fill in the base colour of the eye, I'm using this lime green face paint by Snazaroo. And then to create some depth, I'm going in with this bright green one, which is slightly darker, and I'm just placing that strategically around the eye, copying my reference image. Going back in with my fine liner brush and the black Superstar paint, I'm creating the pupil of the eye. A raptor's pupil isn't round like ours, it's more of an oblong shape. And you'll probably want to layer this a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and opaque. Along the top ridge of the eye, I'm using black eyeshadow to create some depth and shadow. I'm also applying a small amount of that onto the actual eye itself. As you can see on the reference image, there are some darker sections which you wouldn't want to paint in, as that would be too dark. I'm also going to put in a small white dot, which is going to be our reflection. I'll come back to the eye in a minute. So I can start to work on the socket of the eye. I'm going to apply a very small amount of the Fuller's Earth along the top and underneath, still not going too close to the eye itself. And then while that's drying, I'm going to work back on top of the Raptor eye. I'm only using what's left on the bristles as it's going to give us a nice shadow appearance. It's not going to be too dark. And for this, I'm just copying what I see on the reference image. Using the black, I've darkened the socket of the eye. We have to look past the fact that Billy's eye is there, and we have to look at it as a blank canvas. To add some extra texture to the scales, I'm going to be using my Sigma FX8 brush, which has got different length fibres, so it creates scratchy marks and lines, and it's really good for adding the texture into this skin. Now I'm going to darken the socket of the eye, and as I said, the Fuller's Earth really does absorb the colour, so when you first apply it, it's going to be really dark, and then once it's dried, you'll see that it's just added in some extra depth of colour. All I'm doing is layering the two different brown colours with a mix of a little bit of the black. So looking at my reference image, I can see there's white highlights down the side of the jaw and a darker shadow below the lip. Remember, the lip is going to be lower than Billy's natural lip. I'm adding some white lines using the same brush down the centre of the nose, and then also either side of the nostril. The nostril itself comes down just past on either side of Billy's philtrum. And again, I'm layering white and then brown over the top. Using the dark brown, I'm adding lines all the way down the false lip over Billy's natural lips. Then I'm going in with that warm lighter brown and adding lines over that as well. And then I'm going to go in with the white. As you can see, you don't need to be neat about it. This is all about creating texture and colour according to the reference image. Once we go into it with black, it's all going to start to come together. I'm going back in with the two darker browns and just defining around the false lip and the jaw. As I mentioned earlier, the Fuller's Earth does absorb a lot of the colour, so you do have to keep taking a step back and looking as to where needs to be darker. The raptor skin is very mottled and it's scaly and bumpy, so a combination of dabbing your paint and adding in the line work with the brush is what's going to bring this character to life. Following the line from the top of the eye down to the nose, we want to darken all this area, so we're going to go in with a mix of the darkest brown and the black and feather that colour out. And this is going to create more shadow just like the reference image. Using black, I'm going to darken along the false lip line on the chin and then use the mix of the brown and the white below Billy's natural lip to create the false lip of the raptor. Now because the black does get absorbed quite a bit, we're going to go in with black gel liner because this really will give us some extra depth. And it stays dark because the Fuller's Earth doesn't absorb it. Using my brush, I'm going to create some cross-hatching marks. This is going to define those scales that are visible in the socket. Using that gel liner, I'm going to go along and define all of the line work. I bought this gel liner specifically for this look, so that's why I'm dipping it straight from the pot. If you don't have a spare gel liner, then decant some out, don't ruin the one you've got. I'm adding black to either side of the 2 mounds we've created on the forehead, and I'm using my brush just to feather the colour out either side so we get a nice gradient. Then I'm going in with the darkest of the browns and I'm adding that to the very centre of this V shape that we've got going on down towards the nose. I'll also be adding that up the sidewall of each mound and up the centre of the forehead. Again, the reason for this is because I'm copying the reference image and I'm darkening the areas that need darkening. You'll have noticed in the background Tommy's going around and flattening Billy's hair using the Fuller's Earth. Down the centre of the forehead I'm adding some horizontal white lines, and then I'm darkening the side walls of the opposite mound. I'm starting off by using the darkest brown, and then I'm going in with a grey paint by Snazaroo and I'm adding that to the centre of the mounds. I'm adding a patting motion to apply this, and this is going to create a highlight, making it look more three-dimensional. I'm adding some white horizontal lines down the length of the bridge of the nose. Going in with the darkest brown, I'm going to shade around the top of the head. We are going to be blacking out the actual head itself and just making this about the face. If you have time and you have help and you want to continue this all the way through the back of your head, you're more than welcome to. I'm using black around the top of the prosthetic area, and this is really going to emphasise the shape and make it look again more three-dimensional. To make those 2 mounds look like they continue down the face, I'm darkening this centre area again with a little bit of the brown mixed with the black. Then going back in with my Sigma brush, I'm creating more horizontal white lines down that centre area. Now, as raptors don't have ears, you can completely black the ears out, but I find that would probably look a little bit odd when people are looking directly at you. So I've mixed the brown and black together and I've painted that in the ears, using the same colour on a sponge to go round the neck and give it a more mottled appearance. And that completes my Jurassic World Raptor inspired makeup tutorial. Then as you can see, when we drop it to black, it's a really effective makeup look. Once again, here's the reference image on the left and my makeup on the right, so you can see how accurate it looks. So I really hope you guys all enjoyed that. Don't forget, Jurassic World arrives on 3D Blu-ray, Blu-ray and DVD on the 19th of October and is out now on digital HD. If you've missed the trailer, you can click on here now and it will take you to that. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you've missed any of my previous Halloween tutorials, you can click on this one now and it will take you to the playlist.